We are live.
Hello.
Hey, you know what? I did not. Here comes my dogs. I didn't put them out.
Mine's asleep over there in the corner. He had a nice run, so I'm hoping he sleeps through anything that would cause him to bark.
You know what? I'm going to close the door real quick. I'm going
Yeah,
to pop
do
out.
it. Go ahead. Right now, he's just a sleeping little angel. Let's all cross our fingers that it stays that way.
All right. There we go. So, now I'm on the other side of the screen.
Oh, that's weird.
Isn't that funny?
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
All right. I'll get us started because we have some viewers that have logged on and we are so thankful. So thanks for joining us and happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Dog Gurus live discussion. I'm Ashante Marquez, and I'm joined with Amber Burkhalter. We are both Profit Network coaches at the Dog Gurus. If you're listening live, please write in the chat hello. We love the interaction, and it really does help us. And we hope that you will be interacting with us today because I think it's a great topic about de-escalating arousal with the dogs. So
yeah, it is.
To tell you a little bit about the Dog Gurus, we provide expert business guidance and has helped hundreds of pet care facilities thrive. We use comprehensive resources with proven strategies built by pet care business owners. That's right. All of us at the Dog Gurus have owned and operated our own facilities that are coaching. And, we really want to help. And it really warms our heart, I would say, that we pay it forward and we help others succeed. Wouldn't you say that, Amber?
Yes, absolutely. I would agree.
Yeah. So the Dog Gurus, I just mentioned, we have coaches here. We've all been walked in your shoes, and we provide coaching at every level of your business journey. So we have group coaching available, whether you're a startup to your growth phase or to the mature business phase. And of course, lastly, I'll say is we're just glad that you're here. And let's get started with today's topic. So today we're going to talk about de-escalating techniques for when the dogs are coming in just off the charts. And when I was thinking about this topic, the first thing that I thought of, have you ever had that dog walk into your facility and it's like a salmon swimming upstream?
Yeah.
They're like jumping all over the place. The attendants trying to walk them to the back of house.
Yeah.
They're like, jumping, trying to like bite the leash or.
Yes, about to say grabbing the leash.
Like that. I mean, I can think of that numerous dogs like that. So
yes,
Amber, you are our expert as far as training goes. So what would you suggest to the staff, techniques that they can do with that dog before they actually put them in group play?
So it's interesting. When we were talking about this topic, we were talking about arousal versus aggression. And so what you're describing obviously is a lot of arousal, right? Mm-hmm. So the dog is what we would say is at Mach 10. So they are operating up here, very, very, very excited. One of the first things we would do was just put them in their den and let them have a break. See if they calm down. I give them about a 15-minute just time out before they even started to play with the other dogs. These were also dogs that we often would recommend for enrichment services. For us, that could be outside playing fetch or doing agility. We had a swimming pool, so sometimes we would put them in the swimming pool. We had to burn the top off, is what I would say. You got to burn the top of that energy off because it was very destabilizing. You could have a, group of dogs that are completely calm and everything is great, and you send in one of those dogs and it is very destabilizing. And that can sometimes become something more than you want it to become. So giving them that, gap of, hey, let's see if we can calm you down. Let's try to burn the top off. Let's figure out if it's because you're excited or have you, come straight out of your kennel potting and come straight to daycare. And those dogs, you would open the door to let them in and they were just like, shoo, right?
Well, those dogs are going to be the dogs that as soon as they go into group play, they clobber another dog.
Yes. They body slam some poor unexpected dog.
They're just like, bam. And then the dog's like, whoa. So I mean, that was great advice because that's exactly some of the things that we would do. In fact, we had enough room and enough different play yards that with a dog that was that energetic and just that aroused, we would go and throw the ball for a few minutes with them and try to burn some of that off and get them to calm down and get their breathing stabilized.
Yes. And what was always interesting was like the other dogs, even if they didn't see that dog, they picked it up, and you would start to see them like, what's going on?
They feed off each other. So
all the time.
The whole group in a tailspin, basically.
Absolutely. But yeah, sometimes burning the top off and then doing some obedience was always good. Some focusing, like, all right, let's calm down. Let's, do some platform work, that kind of stuff. See if we can rein it in a little bit. It is not advisable to take a dog who is like that and enter them into a group play situation.
No.
Yeah. Like you said, it's very destabilizing, and, arousal can become reactivity or aggression. They can run real close to each other. You can run into some definite issues in play group around redirected aggression when you have an overly aroused dogs.
Yeah.
And that can happen in the morning, but we also had it in the evening. Did you guys have it in the evening?
I think when they would get all rowdy like that, it was around the time when the dog started to go home, pick up from daycare, or when we were starting to feed.
Yeah.
That would get them all stirred up pretty good. But we also had outdoor play yards too. So at least the feeding we could do away from them and they wouldn't see it. But definitely as soon as the first couple dogs start to leave, then they get a little rowdy, right?
Yeah, we used to, one of the things that I encourage people to do is make sure your staff knows what your dog's triggers are. And different dogs will trigger to different things. We used to have dogs that would get very worked up if we had like the Orkin guy come through. If there was like a vendor in the building, they would know there was someone in the building that was not a regular, and you would see their behavior change. So we would say, hey, put Rooster up. We've got a vendor that needs to come through. Or we would say, all right, it's go home time. Let's put up our dogs that don't do well. And they get triggered by this behavior or by this activity, especially around gates. And some of the worst things that I have seen and heard of and talked to clients about have happened around those high arousal times, those trigger points in the gates when you're trying to take dogs in and out, right?
Yeah, that is so important. That is why we teach gate boundary in our Pet Guru College staff training system.
Absolutely.
Because, it is crucial that really needs to be taught on, the first couple days of a staff member's, orientation, because eventually you're gonna ask them, oh, can you go grab that dog and bring him into group play? And then next thing you know, all the other dogs are in the cat. That always happens. You know what? I was going to say, one of the things that I always thought was an interesting observation is that, yes, the dogs in the facility, they would know when there was like a vendor on site and they would get all, worked up. But when I had a new staff working,
they knew it.
They knew it was a staff and they did not react that way. Wasn't
weird? Yes.
Yeah, it's
very weird.
I don't know if it was like the energy that they picked up on, or it's just that, people that are going to work in the facilities are naturally dog people and they sense it. Yeah. I don't know what it was, but never failed. It was just very interesting. They're definitely working on a different frequency level.
I used to say to my clients, we're up here having conversation. They're down here having conversation, and we don't speak that language. Like, we can interpret things and we can watch and be a part of. My own dog is forcing his way in here right now. But we're not operating on the same frequency at all. So yeah, it was really interesting to us. And if we had a new staff member come in, and if we had a staff member that was uncomfortable with dogs, we would know immediately. It was absolutely immediately. You would know. Any dog who we would call a yard cop would immediately start trying to control the situation. Or when parents came in, so they would know what'd you say?
The German Shepherds are always
German Shepherds. I had one. I know they were the worst about it. And the Australian Shepherds and the Border Collies too, but mostly the German Shepherds. Nobody is allowed to have fun in playgroup with a German Shepherd. Everyone calm down.
So here's another typical scenario that I would see in group play. What do you do when you have that dog that just sits there and just barks in another dog's face because it wants, engage and play, but that other dog's like, no, I don't want to do it. And it's just like, bam, 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 bam. Like, what do you suggest for a staff member? How would they handle that?
So very rude behavior, dog or person, right? And some dogs will just tolerate it and some dogs won't, but it's just rude. And again, a destabilizing behavior, right? So there were two things that we would do. The first thing we did was leash walks. And we talk about that a lot in Pet Guru College. We called it teacher's pet, where that meant that you had to stay with me while I walked around and took care of all my business with the dogs, and you were next to me. And the dogs learn very quickly, oh, I don't want to do that. Right. So they'll see you like, oh, I'm not barking. That was that guy. Right. They immediately start to distance themselves like, oh, it wasn't me. You don't need to pick up that leash. We're good. The second thing was timeout. When we built our largest play yard actually had 5 timeout spots that you could put a dog in that went outside the yard. So there was an entrance from the outside and the inside of the yard. So they would go into the timeout spots. And so using timeouts are really good for things like this. Removing what the dog wants will control that behavior. You don't have to really do much more than just say, okay, if you're going to do that, this is going to be the result. And since they learn by association, they will immediately, like I said, they see you coming with the leash and they're like, nope, I'm good.
And I would assume that you'd want to use a similar technique if a dog is just doing a bunch of zoomies in the group, because although, what we recommend is allow them to do it for about 30 seconds. And then you need to redirect and interfere because, it can shift into predatory drive, and basically the whole group will be chasing that one dog and start nipping at him. And then it gets to be a panic situation with that dog.
Very quickly, it'll accelerate for sure.
Correct. So, I mean,
the other thing that happens is, I 100% agree. A short zoomie is fine. A zoomie that begins to build momentum, right? Now we're going to have a problem. And they'll run into other dogs or your staff. I mean, I was in business a long time, and we had, more than a handful of our staff get injured by a dog that ran into the back of their knees running around the yard, or they run into a dog that maybe they have arthritis. Maybe it's not bad. Maybe it's not advanced. Maybe, maybe they just don't feel good that day. And that dog, bowls into them, and immediately you have a problem. So short zoomies are fine, but keep it in, don't let that momentum build.
Or just be very careful too. If they have a tendency to do that when they get to the facility, and that's kind of like their first MO. Let them go do it in an empty room or with one other dog that's a good match, but don't let them do it in a group that's 10 dogs, 15 dogs. I think that gets to be dangerous right away. And of course, we're hoping that your group play groups are broken up by size and temperament of the dog.
Play style for sure. Yeah, that's a big one too. When we were talking about this, I was thinking, one of the ways that we prevented this from happening is the way that we split our groups up. We had the same play styles together. We did have this interesting little development that I still have theories about, but not 100% sure, where sometimes you could take a dog that was really like wired and put him with a group of calm dogs, and he would mirror that same behavior. So sometimes you will see that, but I know you guys divided by play style as well, didn't you?
Absolutely. I mean, that was huge for us. And honestly, like, our customers really appreciate that, because I don't think that they wanted to see a teacup Chihuahua mixed in with like, 70-pound dogs. So, our customers were very well educated about, what they were looking for and the type of care for their dogs. So that was a huge selling point for us. And that is one of the things that differentiated our facility compared to some of the competition there. But ultimately, everything that we did and designed, how we designed our services was based on the welfare of the pet and what is best for the pet. And, we always stood behind that. And sometimes the owners, I mean, as I said, they were all pretty well educated about it, and they were like, yeah, absolutely. But sometimes you're like, well, at so-and-so place, they get to play all day, and I'm like, well, here, our research has shown,
Well, you have to educate your clients, don't you? on what is great for their dog, what versus what may not be great for their dog. And I mean, when we started out, we did all day play, large group all day play. And then once we knew better, we did better, right? And then we started doing different things. And some of our clients understood that and were grateful. Some of them, it took a little while to educate. And then we had some that just wanted a different experience, which is also okay.
So let's talk about, this is a different type of arousal. So let's talk about that dog that, you know, maybe they're not there for group play, but they need to be there for overnight boarding. And the owner just really needs to be, has somebody look after them, but they're so scared.
Yeah.
They're just shaking like a leaf when they enter, and they're like hiding behind the owner's legs or in between the legs, things like that. Like, what steps can a staff member take when they see that situation happen, and how can they help alleviate the dog being scared?
You know, it depends. Really frightened dogs sometimes can't calm down. They are just not suited for this type of boarding. But some dog, you know, a dog that comes in that's nervous and, you know, I would say twitchy is what I used to say. Like, he's just a little twitchy. He's going to be okay. We like to do really slow interactions. So we take them, let them, again, relax in their kennel. Make sure wherever you're putting them to sleep, let's say they're staying overnight, you want to make sure that you're putting them next to another dog that is not a highly aroused dog. If you have different spots in your building that are calmer, you know, you don't want to put a dog that's nervous next to a dog that's, you know, spinning around in this kennel and barking because he's having, you know, fun, not necessarily that he's upset, but that he's just really excited. So putting them next to the correct dog and give them time, just give them time. Sometimes you can do enrichments with them, and enrichment doesn't necessarily mean activity, right? You could just do a scent walk. Just take them outside and let them sniff things around. You could do a puzzle game with them. There are different ways that a dog can be stimulated that don't require them to be forced into a play group situation. I'm not a fan of putting dogs that are very scared in play groups because they're scared. Yeah. And when you talk about put the pet first, that's not putting the pet first.
Exactly. And let me just preference it, or talk about, you know, difference between like nervous Nelly versus so scared. If the dog is like showing its teeth, it's so scared, it's going to react in a with aggression. You know, that's something that you definitely want to talk with the owner about and explain that safety comes first at your facility. Yeah. And you don't want to really put your staff in that jeopardy.
Fear biting is really dangerous. And so a dog that is so afraid that they're going to be reactive to a handler is likely not a good fit for your facility. Well, for larger facilities, I don't know every facility that's watching right now, but definitely talking to the owner and maybe trying to find a better fit can be a good idea for sure.
Yeah, I agree. But you just got to take it real slow. And like Amber said, you know, it's baby steps, and don't force them to do anything. I mean, you got to let the dog make the choice to try, you know, whatever, you know, to work with you or interact with you. So, yeah. All right. What else do I have on my list here that I wanted to pick your brain about? What about this? Because I've had some parents bring their dog to us for a meet and greet, and we have the dog in the room by itself, but they can see across the way through the fence at some other dogs, and they're fence fighting. And the owner's like, "Oh, no. As soon as you get them in the room, it's okay." I'm like, "Okay, you do that then." You know?
Oh goodness. Speaking of a dog barking, I thought it was the time of day when people were going to start coming home. We may see a dog bark. We may hear a dog barking. It's okay. It's a good boy. Two things to that. We would have that, and we would have people who were like, "Oh, he's only leash aggressive or leash reactive. So as long as you don't put a leash on him, he's going to be fine." And we were like, that's how we move dogs around. And how are we going to get them, you know, back to you? Like, so there are hot spots, right? Dogs around fencing, you know, some dogs are very border or boundary reactive, right? There's a boundary there and they will be reactive. If you are in a facility that has boundaries, that dog will be reactive. Now you have a dog in your facility that is reactive, and a dog that is being reactive. Oh goodness, what do you hear out there? They're not really making great decisions. They're not making great decisions, right? So we don't typically, those were not the kind of dogs that we took care of.
Right.
Well, when it came to like group play or that type of thing, we had a service where we could take care of dogs like that. We also had training on site, so it was a little bit different. But anytime you have a dog that comes in that has got a hot spot like that, especially from day one, you are likely going to see that accelerate as they become more comfortable. So this is a dog who doesn't know his surroundings or her surroundings. They've just come in, they don't know you, and they're already showing you this behavior. Imagine them 3 and 6 months down the line when they're comfortable. And now they get reactive at a gate or a fence. And that dog we were just talking about that likes to do the zoomies decides that's his moment and takes off.
Yeah.
And now he's run into this dog, and now you have a redirected issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, those types of things. Leash was a big one. We used to have a lot of people like, oh, well, just don't put him on a leash and he'll be fine. What?
I know. Those were the dogs where we'd be like, we have this enrichment program that's excellent.
Yes.
We were able to cater to those dogs.
Yes.
Because we had, this really awesome alternative, program that was just lovely. And not only did our solo or human companion dogs use it, but so did the group play dogs, because enrichment's fun. It's fun for everybody. It's fun for
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. Huge fan. Yeah. As long as you have a dog that goes home and they are well exercised, your clients will be happy. And you can define what that is for them, right? Is exercise playing in a group all day? Is exercise doing enrichments? Is exercise a combination of both? Like, they want a dog that is well exercised and well cared for, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think we covered all can you think of any other scenarios that, we can give tips on? I mean, that was my list that I put together. The only thing, I guess we didn't talk about resource guarding.
Yeah, I was about to say, we had a policy where we would rarely, if ever, put sibling dogs together in a play group.
Yes, they gang up.
And sometimes you would have one that was guarding the other one. He or she did not want anybody around he or she, right? Particularly litter mates. So that was often a trigger spot for us. So we would just rotate them, put them in different groups. If the owner wanted them to sleep together, they could sleep together. We didn't feed dogs together for the obvious reasons. But that was also a hot spot for us, was sibling dogs.
Same.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, we always, even if we did put two dogs together that were siblings, we always left it as an option to separate them if necessary.
Yes.
Because
that's true.
Environment, it does.
You don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes they both gang up on each other, or it's that transferred aggression where, they'll attack each other. So
yeah, we had one group of dogs that stayed together all the time. They were Chihuahuas and a Dachshund. There was 4 of them. We called them the Yayas. They were founding members of everything that we did, but they were fine. They got on their little spot in the small dog area, because we separate all our dogs out, and they stayed there and they were fine. But that was rare. It was more of a, resource guarding. And I mean, when you talk about resource guarding, the things they guard, right? The grossest things on the planet. But you would have a dog that would, a dog threw up in the yard and Bobo's decided that he owns it, right? Like, no one can come near it. Some of those behaviors, you can't control the environment. The thing with reactivity and aggression is, if you have a dog who has a trigger, you can control the environment and work on it. When you have a large group of dogs, 5, 6, 8, 15 dogs, and somebody throws up, you don't have control over that. You don't have control over when that's going to happen, or, and then you would have dogs that would guard it, right? Have you seen that? We cannot be the only people who have seen that in their facility.
Oh no, for sure.
So gross.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like that just were not a good fit.
The dog that likes to eat the feces. So
yes, the poop eaters, of course.
It's so uncomfortable to have to talk to the parents about that. Usually they know. They're usually there.
They're like, yeah, we know.
Or like, the things that my staff would get a kick out of when they'd have to explain like what the dog threw up, and it was like, undergarments or something like that.
We made people collect it in the yard. Like, sometimes undergarments were delivered to us, and we had retainers that were like, they would come out and they'd be like, I found this so-and-so, threw this up and it's somebody's retainer in a Ziploc bag. The funniest story I have is I had one of my kennel managers called me one night at home and he was like, well, I think I have a problem. He was very Southern. He talked very slow. I am from the South. No problem with the slow talking, but he was like, well, I think I have a problem. What's going on? I cannot remember the dog's name. It was a black lab. He's thrown up a quarter. And I said, okay, well, let me know. And he was like, no, he's thrown up a quarter like 5 times. He keeps throwing up change. So I was like, well, that's an emergency room visit. The dog had gotten into the owner's like change jar and had literally eaten the whole and was throwing up money.
That's
fun. Emergency surgery, right?
Name for a piggy bank,
Yes, right.
But was the dog okay though?
He was fine. He was fine. He was a lab. A lot of labs got like steel stomachs, but yeah, we did. The dog had emergency surgery. We called the owner, was out in Seattle, and we were like, we need to do this. And turns out that it was actually the owner's teenage son, and he knew the dog had eaten it, but he didn't want to say anything because they were leaving on trip, and he was like, it'll be all right or whatever, and it wasn't all right. But that's probably one of the strangest things that we've seen a dog throw up. Yeah.
Poor thing.
Interesting. Yeah. What an interesting job we all have.
I know. My husband would always be making fun of me because, at least once a day we're talking about poop or something like that. So only in your profession. I was like, I don't know about that, but
I know, right? Good grief.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for the past 30 minutes. Appreciate that. We have some great resources out there for you to train your staff on how to use these techniques that we've been talking about, and that's Pet Guru College. Pet Guru College is excellent. It's role-specific training for your staff, and it includes like client care counselor, daycare counselor, enrichment counselor. So if you want to get some help in teaching your staff how to manage dogs with positive reinforcement dog handling skills, Pet Guru College is your source, as well as teaching them all those fun and enrichment activities. So check it out. You can go to our website. I will also link it in the chat here. Last thing I will say is you're welcome to join our group, Grow Your Pet Care Business. We'd love to have you. It's a great forum to get a lot of advice and be a part of a great community with like-minded entrepreneurs. And just for that, we have 2 rules, and that is be nice and no selling. We really want to keep it as a place to just be a forum for support and advice. All right, so let me go ahead and put in the Pet Guru College here. There it is. Oh, so if someone wants to know what kind of dog you have.
Right now I have a standard poodle. I had 2 dogs. I lost one. My German Shepherd passed away at Thanksgiving. And so now we just have one. He's a standard poodle. He's amazing dog. He's supposed to be my son's dog, but I knew what that meant when I got the dog. So he's my dog. Yeah. That's the one that he's got a crazy loud bark. Out of all my dogs, all the dogs I've owned, and I've owned a lot of dogs, he is the loudest dog we have ever owned. Very loud. Funny. Sorry about that.
The German Shepherd?
Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
His bark is crazy loud. Yeah. Oof.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and thank you for watching.
Yes. Bye, everybody.